Hey, it's Alicia from mobilitymastery.com, and today I'm going to walk you through a fascia health test that you can use anywhere in your body, but I'm going to demo it on this area right here because the only tool you're going to need are your hands. So any of you watching right now will have no excuses not to do it because you can do it anywhere. You don't even need a foam roller. But what I'm going to teach you can and should be applied to your entire body. So as you're moving around from body part to body part, hopefully using, compression and movement-based fascia release to get out of pain and optimize, you can use the test that I'm going to share with you today, or self-assessment, to determine what's actually going on inside your body. Because different sensations and feelings, whether on the inside or the outside, if you're palpating and you feel something, or on the inside you have, you notice something through sensation, it could mean something. It could indicate something in particular. And while I'm not a fan of, saying this always means that, or, X always means Y, there are some general guidelines that I can give you to at least give you a place to start to begin interpreting what you feel or find in your fascial system. So yes, we're going to dive into all of this stuff on the board here. But first, I'm going to actually walk you through the self-assessment or test because I want you to tune into what you're feeling before we actually dissect it or make sense of it using this information. So what I want you to do, we're not really, our goal right now is not to release fascia, FYI, it's to gather data. So as you're doing fascia release throughout your body, you're going to use the same process of gathering data to find out how your fascia is doing from a health perspective. So what we're targeting right here are your SCMs and somewhat near your jawline or your ear, maybe all the way down, but somewhere in there. And we're just going to use a relatively simple test of palpation, maybe a little bit of movement. But again, like I said, we're just gathering data. So you're going to use your hand or your fingers. I like to use the flats of my fingers here. My earrings are kind of getting in the way. I'm going to take this one out for a sec. So first, I'm just going to palpate. So you don't want to poke yourself in the throat. Please don't do that. That's why I like to use the flats of my fingers. So I'm just palpating and noticing. And right here, there's a little soreness, I guess. And I'm noticing that it's more towards my throat than in the belly of this muscle. So then I want to just make sure. Is that right? Okay. And then I'm going to palpate closer up to the ear and the jawline and see what I feel there. So what we're doing right now through palpating is gathering data from the superficial fascia all the way down into the deeper fascia that's within the muscle belly here of the SCM, the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And then we're going to make sense of it. So I am going to feel something probably different than you are right now. Each of us is going to feel something different depending on what's actually going on with us. But I want to add the element of movement into this test or assessment too. And again, we're not trying to release anything. Our goal isn't to affect change as much as it is to gather data right now. So I want you to, again, just kind of palpate an area, find a tender spot, and then move your head a little bit. Ooh, my neck just popped. So when I do this and I lean into my fingers, I actually hear like a squeegee sound in my ear, like a squeaking kind of that's interesting, right? So this area can affect your ears. And then also when I do this, I notice a lot more tenderness. So it wasn't as noticeable here, really is here when I'm loading the fascia into my fingers or the compression. And then that's super tender right here or sore. And so what you're looking for, put this back in, are sensations and textures, and then locations of what you find. So I would like you to, describe, if you're brave and you want to do it live here with me on YouTube, awesome. put it below this video, what you find out. If you want to do it on your own, then maybe grab a piece of paper or your phone and jot this down, just so that you can remember to do this and extract out similar data from whatever body part you're actually working on. But you're looking for textures like density or a knot or ropiness, or maybe you feel squishiness at the surface, but you can kind of tell that under it is something harder. So as much as you can describe that feels accurate, do it. And then you're also looking for sensations. So sensations like, ooh, that feels tender, or that's excruciating, or it only hurts when I do this, right? Like I was saying, when I load it, it's more tender or more painful to me. If you notice anything up here, so say, like I notice a lot of tenderness at my jawline or towards my ear, and then as I move away, it gets less tender, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's more tender in the belly here of the muscle, and you don't notice anything up here. So all of that's going to be really good information. And the reason I picked this area to do the test with you, or the self-assessment of walking you through it, is because we're going to touch on these three things here more so for most of us than other places in the body, but you're going to encounter these three things pretty much everywhere you encounter fascia, but to varying degrees, especially with the lymph system. So what does all this mean, and what do your textures and sensations mean? And before we actually dive in, I just remembered, I forgot, if you have any reactivity or something you notice other than textures or sensations or locations of things, like if you suddenly get nauseous, if you suddenly want to scream or cry or get angry or anything like that, that would be worth writing down as well. In this area, I'm not hunting for something specific. I am not one of those people, by the way, who believes that, say, anger always lives in the throat region, and grief always lives in the belly, and fear always lives in the calves. I think it can be anywhere, depending on the person. So the fascial system, I've always said, is the best place really to investigate all the other systems of your body, because fascia is the one element that touches all the other systems. So I'm not going to go fully into that today, but I needed to tell you that so that this makes sense. But fascia wraps every nerve ending, it wraps our muscle fibers, it wraps the muscle bundles and the groups. Your tendons and ligament are fascia, just a denser version of it. Your bones are wrapped in fascia, your organs are wrapped in fascia, and your lymph system lives inside the superficial fascia. While you can investigate many things with the fascial system, I'm focusing on three main components that you would want to be aware of when you're doing fascia release, to kind of put yourself through a quick test. Like, how's my fascia doing in this area? And based on that, how's my lymph system, how's my nervous system, and how's my musculoskeletal system doing? So why these three things? Well, they're the most major things you want to be paying attention to on a consistent basis to live your best life or have optimal health. Your lymph system, of course, detoxes you, and you want to have an efficient, functioning lymph system, hopefully at all times, so you can move toxins out of your body and not accumulate them. The nervous system, of course, regulates fight, flight, freeze, and the parasympathetic response of rest and relax, or rest and restore. And then, of course, we've talked a lot about the nervous system on this channel as it pertains to reactivity, subconscious beliefs, stuff like that. We're going to get to that in just a second. And then there's the musculoskeletal system, and that is considered a system of the body. It's muscles and bones. I'm kind of considering it our soft tissue and bony structure system. And I actually am going to include fascia here, because you cannot touch muscle without touching fascia. And anywhere your muscle and fascia goes, your bones, the skeleton system tends to follow. So with this, we can monitor and kind of measure what's happening with your bones, your muscles, as far as like imbalances and also function, stuff like that. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, and that's all over there. But those are the three systems that you're looking for clues about through this self-assessment. So I hope that's making sense, and I'm going to actually break it down for you, so it hopefully really makes sense. So when we just did this here, we were looking for clues as to what might be going on in the lymph system, the nervous system, and maybe the musculoskeletal system. And then again, I kind of just want to keep stressing this. I am not suggesting that you can use this self-assessment to assess your entire body's fascia or lymph or nervous system or musculoskeletal system. I'm saying this is the kind of quick self-assessment you want to run any fascia release you're doing through. So for example, if you're doing your calves or if you're doing your quads or your biceps, you want to kind of just keep in the back of your mind what I'm about to tell you, so that maybe you'll go, maybe you've been doing fascia release for a while and you're on a kind of a maintenance routine, and seemingly out of nowhere or suddenly you start feeling some of the symptoms related to lymph system dysfunction that could be your body could talk to you through fascia release about. You would want to pay attention to that, because if there's something going on that you haven't been aware of or that's new in your environment and suddenly there's a threat there that you weren't aware of, you can do something about it, and fast. So as far as the lymph system goes, what you're going to want to look for some of those clues that something could be going on at the lymph system level, which lives inside your superficial fascia, is inflammation that's really obvious at the surface. So obviously we can have inflammation in a joint, we can have deep inflammation, we can have inflammation in the abdominal cavity or visceral inflammation. I'm kind of mostly here talking about inflammation associated with the lymph system and that superficial fascia. So if it's inflamed at the surface, if it's obviously puffy, if it's really very tender to the touch, if it's very tender to the touch at the surface, that's an indication there could be something going on in your lymph system. So, when I was walking you through this and I was like, yeah, this feels really tender. And when I do something up here, it might be tender. You have a bunch of lymph nodes here, and then your lymph drains here. So if you have swollen lymph nodes, if you've ever felt a swollen lymph node in your jaw, maybe when you're about to get sick or while you're sick or something, it's noticeable. I have a tendency to feel my body at any given time to kind of palpate and find out what's going on. So I'm usually really aware when I have swollen lymph nodes, and if I do, I immediately start doing some lymph drainage to get those channels open so I can drain whatever's in there and not get sick. And I haven't had a cold or a flu in like 2 or 3 years, something like that. Even with all the moving and living in a tent and battling elements and being super stressed out for the last year and a half, I never got sick, which is kind of amazing to me. But I was very on it with this lymph drainage. So swollen lymph nodes, extremely, I didn't write that all out, extremely painful fascia release. So fascia has its own pain receptors, and deep fascia can certainly have pain. What I'm talking about is if you can barely put any weight on a tool like a foam roller, or if you are in one of my online programs and you're learning kinetics partner fascia release with a partner and you're stepping on somebody or they're stepping on you and it's like intolerable, like you just can hardly accept any weight, that's an indication there could be something going on in your lymph system related to toxicity backup. So, I like to use that if I discover it to immediately kind of flush my fascial system in a way that flushes that superficial fascia to get the lymph moving. I'm not trying to release deep fascia. And this isn't meant to be a course on, lymph system drainage or how to move your lymph or anything like that. I do have other videos on it, and I'll probably be doing more, so stay tuned for that. But those are the clues you want to look for. All right, and then with the nervous system, what you want to look for is reactivity. So that could be tensing up, immediately holding your breath, not breathing. It could be going silent. It could be giggling. It could be an avoidant tactic. It could be all kinds of stuff, right? Can be reactivity. It could be emotion. It could be, ooh, I don't like that, I'm not going to do it. It could be, ooh, I love that, I want more, right? But it's reactivity without a label of good or bad. So just notice your reactivity. when you're doing fascia release. That includes fight, flight, and freeze. So if you tend to want to fight what's happening, your muscles might tense, your fascia might tense against it, try to push you out, right? Even if you're the tool, your own body might reject your efforts to release fascia. If you tend to go into fight mode, you might freeze, you might flee. So just start to notice those. And then we've talked a lot about this on the channel, and there's much more coming about this topic because it's just such a deep one and a rich one and a complex one, but has to do with our programming, our subconscious programming, our neural loops, our beliefs that are at the conscious and unconscious level, or patterns, right? So we can actually be operating patterns without a lot of reactivity, or we could be operating patterns that are just kind of left over without a lot of emotion. So they may or may not be connected all the time, all of these. That's why I separated them out, but sometimes they're all connected. So you might engage a fight, flight, freeze response while also engaging a different type of reactivity like emotion, while also implementing, a subconscious belief and a pattern, let's say, right? But they may or may not be happening all at once. But these are the main things you're going to want to look for when you're releasing fascia. And I'll just say as a general rule, like again, this isn't meant to be a full-blown course or walkthrough of what to do if you experience reactivity. For now, I just want you to notice it. But I'll give you one kind of like master key. You need to feel safe in your nervous system to get a result. And you can absolutely feel safe and be extremely uncomfortable. Like you can have this extremely painful or excruciating experience with fascia release for maybe there's something going on in the lymph system, for example, and feel safe at the same time. And if you do, great, keep going. Get it over with. But if you don't feel safe, you want to figure out how to make yourself feel safe first before you continue with whatever you're doing. So as far as the nervous system goes, that's my one thing. You always want to feel safe. And so do whatever you have to do to find that for yourself first. But go into observer mode and try to notice things more frequently. Self-awareness. And then the musculoskeletal system is going to be about fascial imbalances, fascial adhesions, muscle function, like some muscles stop firing, for example, or nerve signals stop firing to cue that muscle to move or contract. We're looking for adhesions in the fascial system, of course, that could contribute to muscle or, fascial imbalances. And then, of course, structural alignment, comes into play when there's fascial imbalances. You could have pelvic instability. So that's kind of all under musculoskeletal. We're talking about, again, muscle, nerve, and bone function, and getting the nutrients they need, mobility, range of motion, and then I put reciprocal inhibition. I'm not going to go into that, but it is something you could investigate through the fascial system that would indicate how your fascial system may be impacting your musculoskeletal system in terms of muscle firing. So opposites in the body inhibit one another, and so you want them to be balanced. You want everybody playing nice and functioning, and everything being connected in a healthy way. So this is like meant to be kind of a crash course on all of this. I go super deep on all of this in my courses and trainings with people. So I hope you'll join me one day for those because it's more of a guided process through it all. But this is just, again, once you kind of memorize this, which you will with a little bit of practice, it's just going to be intuitive for you. Like you'll get on the foam roller on your calves, for example, and go, oh my God, I didn't realize my ankles were kind of inflamed. And I'm actually telling you what happened to me about a month and a half ago. And I'm so inflamed and it is so painful. Holy crap. And, I'm always kind of assessing myself anyway. But when you go to fascia release, you can learn a lot about all these systems in like 30 seconds. And then you can use that information to get yourself the best possible result, or maybe alert yourself to something you weren't aware of, like maybe systemic toxicity or inflammation, or any of the other things we just talked about. So I hope that makes sense. I want you to, like I said, take this and use it whenever you're doing fascia release. Kind of tuck the information in the back of your mind, and remember that you're not always just trying to release fascia, you're trying to gather data and use it to have incrementally more and more self-awareness, more conscious self-awareness, and more conscious or intentional empowerment and habitation of your body and your mind-body space. So that's my goal for myself, and I invite you to adopt that as your goal too, not just to have the absence of pain. So use this information to empower yourself, gain wisdom, and become more intuitive with your body as you use fascia release. So tell me what you think about this video below, share one takeaway, and tell me one thing you're gonna do right now, or if you did this with me, which I hope you did, share the insights you gathered just from this area alone, because we've got a lot of lymph here, we've got muscles, of course, and as far as musculoskeletal goes, this area is connected to the jaw and the neck, so it could tell you something about neck pain if you have neck pain or jaw pain or anything like that. So comment below. I will see you in the comments. If you're brand new here, then welcome. I hope you hit the subscribe button. We have new videos that go out every single week, several times a week, and I would love for you to join my email community. I've got some free resources for you in the link below, including a kinetics technique and our top 5 PDFs right now. And if you're landing on this video later, maybe something even better. We're working on something cool right now for you guys. So do that in the description below with the link there. I think that's it. I'll see you next time.